Hi everybody, this is Veronica of DesignaholicsStudio.com. This is my very first video, so I hope you can all be patient with me and I don't take too long. I wanted to show you this amazing mixed media tag. Amazing because I did it, and I think it's amazing because I haven't really done a lot of this kind of project. Because I think I have adult ADD, I didn't want to redo this on another tag. So I've decided to do it on a 5x7 canvas board. And as much as we might like everything to always look exactly the same as the first one we do, it never happens because they're handmade. So what I'm going to do is go through the process of doing this tag on this canvas. And I've picked out all of the things that I'm going to use so that it will save a little bit of time. And here we go. The very first thing I'm going to use are I'm going to use one stamp off of here. I'm going to use this stamp. I just think it's beautiful. It fits into the color scheme of the mauves and the grays. And this is a set of 3 stamps that you can find on the site. This is the packaging, and they're absolutely gorgeous. All a little bit different and usable for a number of different projects. Because I don't often trust the glue that's on the back of these things or on the back of washi tape, I'm going to use our mixed media glue to apply it to the canvas. And this is the glue that I'm talking about. It's fantastic. I love it. I used to use Mod Podge all the time, and we do have Mod Podge if you'd like to use that. But I like this better. So the very first thing I'm going to do is apply this stamp to the corner of my canvas. Now you may be wondering how I know that's where I want it. Well, last night I played around and played around and played around because it always takes me a long time to make decisions, and I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. So I kind of have an idea in my head right now of where I want everything. And I'm going to go ahead and start it. And here we go. I hope you can see this. As I said, this is the first time I've ever done it. So I'm not 100% sure what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing when I do the project, but putting it on the canvas is a different story. This stamp actually feels quite sticky. I may not have needed to do that, but better safe than sorry. And there we go. And I'm just going to apply the mixed media glue to the top of this. What I found with Mod Podge, and hadn't noticed this until somebody pointed it out, it stays a little tacky when you're finished using it, and I'm not too crazy about that idea. This particular glue dries very, very quickly, which is great because you can continue on with your project, and it doesn't stay wet. Now I'm going to use a piece of washi tape. Again, I have a little trouble trusting the washi tape that it will stay glued, so I'm going to put some of the mixed media glue onto the canvas and do it as if I was using a napkin. I think I may go almost all the way across. And here we go with that. This is a very pretty washi tape. It's got a lot of the colors that are in the project itself in it. And I'm just going to lay it down there, spread it out. I'm going to tear it, and I will go over it as well with Mod Podge, I said it, mixed media glue. And this will stay down now for sure. I did use the mixed media glue to apply a piece of washi tape down here, the words "Be Happy" in this little flower area. And I did the same thing. I used the mixed media glue to hold it down. Now, I am going to use a piece of a beautiful napkin that I have available, and this is the one that I'm using. As you can see, I only have one piece left out of the 4 that come on the napkin because I've been ripping it and tearing it and putting a piece here and a piece there and trying out different approaches until I got what I liked. This is the napkin that I'm using. You'll see it when I go to put the iris onto the canvas. And I took the little butterflies from this beautiful napkin, which just happened to have purple butterflies on it. I was going to use this pink one, but it's a bit big, so I probably won't. Anyway, what I do now, I didn't used to do it this way, but what I do now is I put my mixed media glue onto the canvas just in a small area, not the whole size of whatever it is I'm gluing on. And I lay very carefully my piece of napkin on top. And use the glue again. And where I've already laid it down and put glue underneath it, I just go over the top. And this piece doesn't have any glue under it, so I lift it and put the glue under it. Doesn't matter if you go over your stamp again. And then go over the top once more. Whoops, it's starting to rip. You have to be careful, because you know that when you use napkins, this is the napkin, when you use napkins, you do remove the 2 layers, the 2 plies, and then use just one of them. And I will show you how to do that in a minute after I get this down. I don't want it to get stuck to, it to get stuck to the washi tape. And I lift it and go back under it as far over as it's going to go. Doesn't matter if you go further than you need to. And lay it down. Go back over it. Because this is such a large piece that I'm laying down here, I don't normally put such large pieces on. But because this is such a large piece, it may wrinkle a little bit. So far it hasn't. If it does, I don't mind, because it just adds interest and character to the piece. But some people may not like that, so you have to just work a little more carefully. I'm not being very careful. Whoops, there you go. I ripped it. That's okay. I'll find some way of dealing with that later. There are so many more things that are going to happen here. I'm sure that I'll be able to fix that. I think that my hand is too heavy. That's what's happening. I have to be lighter with my touch when I do the top layer of mixed media glue. Maybe use a little bit more so that I'm not pressing so hard. Make sure there's glue underneath here. And there we go. Almost done. Yeah, got a few wrinkles down here, but as I said, I don't mind them. It's pretty smooth all the way, except once I got to the bottom and I'm ripping it again. I have to be far more gentle. Okay, now I had already prepared this piece of the same napkin, and I'm going to lay it down right here. And laying it down exactly the same way as putting some glue here. Putting it down like this. And if I don't lift this and reset it, it's going to definitely show wrinkles because it was sticking in a way that wasn't going to work. And you're almost pulling the napkin down with your brush and your glue. And that is why I'm not getting wrinkles here. And maybe I didn't do that where I did get a few wrinkles, so I'll have to be aware of that. So pull it down and then use your glue. And this is sliding a bit, so I hope it's staying in the camera range and not getting fuzzy. And there you go. Now, I have another piece that I am going to use on this edge, but I wanted to show you, just before I go any further, the ripped edge of this napkin. When I take a piece off of any large size napkin, I always rip the edges. It gives you a smoother edge when you lay it down. On the odd occasion, if I'm trying to be very careful between two pieces, I may do a little clip with the scissors, but not very often. I don't need to do this edge because it's going to go over the edge. And I wanted to show you, just in case you don't know, I'm sure most of you do, that napkins need to be separated when you're going to use them. So this particular napkin is 3-ply. You have to take off the first, so there's one, and then you have to take off the second, and there's two. Now the reason why I didn't do all of these on this video was because sometimes they are particularly difficult to separate, and it takes a little while and you have to be careful, so I didn't really want to spend time doing that. Well, look at that. I'm going to cover up that spot that ripped by putting this piece on top of it. Now I went quite a bit off the edge because I want this long strip to show. If you look at the tag, there's the same long strip, and I was able to shade under it, which makes it pop out of the tag. So that's what I want to be able to do here, and I wanted the strip to show. Now I still have a spot here that's been ripped, but I am sure I'll be able to cover that up somehow at some point. There, the entire canvas is totally covered. I'm going to let that dry now. It will dry very quickly because I want to show you what I'm going to do next in order to put a focal point on here. I'm covering up my mixed media. You close it so that it doesn't start to get hard. It has never, but who knows. I have two little baby food jars full of water here. One I keep for the brushes that I was using for the mixed media glue, because if the mixed media glue dries in there, it'll be as hard as a rock and you won't be able to use it again. The second one will be for a brush that I'm going to use with the white gesso. Now this gesso is not available on our site at this moment, but it's going to be. And it does an amazing job, so you might be interested in having some of this if you don't have it. And the only other thing that isn't on the site that I'm using here today will be this particular type of brush. This is a number 7 Royal, but I am going to recommend something a little bit even smaller than this, maybe a 6. It's a round, and we will also be carrying these, but we don't have these yet. We do have sets of brushes that you can use for applying the mixed media glue. Now, I don't think this is dry enough yet, so I may pause for a minute and come back to it. Well, I'm back, and it's definitely dry on the top, not quite so dry on the bottom, but I wanted to show you what to do with these pieces of napkin that are hanging over the edge. Again, you may not already know how to do this, but just in case you don't, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a piece of sandpaper. It's just inexpensive sandpaper, and it's fairly coarse, and I'm going to sand off the pieces that are hanging over. I'm going to use a motion that goes from top to bottom. On the odd occasion I may go across, but most of the time it's top to bottom, just to get off that excess paper that gets in my way. I can't stand it when it's sitting there, so I generally take it off before I go any further or do anything else. Sometimes when I was making a Batman box for my grandson, I did this to the paper at the edge, and it tended to roughen up the actual surface of the napkin, the Batman napkin that was on the lid of the box. But when I finished the box, it looked very cool like that, almost vintage, and he loved it, so I guess it worked. There we go. That's good enough. And I can get started again. Now the next thing I'm going to do is put on the focal point, and that on this tag, the focal point is this iris right here with the daisy and the lily of the valley. It was a small focal point because, of course, the tag is not very big. So I have chosen a larger focal point for this project. I'm still using the iris because I absolutely love it. And I'm going to do more than one. So I'm going to put this down. You know, it's still a titch damp. So what I'm going to do while we wait for that tiny little bit to dry, because of course it's wet where I need to use it, I'm going to tell you what I did with some of those little wooden circles. Actually, I'll show you. I'm going to get it very quickly. Here it is. I've done quite a few of them now because they're so easy and so fast and fun and you can use them for a number of different things. This is just one of those little wood circles. And this is the same napkin as what I'm using for the focal point. It's the iris. I just took out a small piece from that napkin. I painted the inside white because you have to have white underneath the napkin. Otherwise, you lose the entire effect of the napkin. It just fades right into the background, and that's not what you want to happen. So I painted that white, and then I used the mixed media glue, and I adhered the iris. And then I did the shading around the outside, which I am going to show you on this canvas. And ultimately, I varnished it, and that was it. And I'm going to glue a little round magnet on it, and I'm going to use this as a fridge magnet. And here's one I did. This one I did with a bird on it. What I'm going to do is just make a few of these up. And I have some very, very small pieces, and they work just as nicely. I'm going to make a few of these up, keep them handy, and just give them to my friends whenever I see them, especially in this pandemic period where everybody needs a little something to cheer them up. And I have a girlfriend who is absolutely an iris fanatic, so I'm going to give her this one. And I'm keeping the bird because I love birds. I have one that I did with a rose on it, and that's for a girlfriend whose name happens to be Rose. And my girlfriend, another friend of mine, gave me a beautiful hibiscus, and I have made her one with a hibiscus on it as a thank you. Anyway, I think we're dry enough now to play a little bit with this. So this is the white gesso. It's going to provide the white surface underneath the napkin. These napkins, as I said, they have already been separated and torn. Now, I did intend, and I forgot to do it, so I'll do it right now. For anybody that doesn't know what I mean when I say, like, tear your edges, this is all you do. You just literally tear the piece out of the napkin that you want to use. You can leave white border on it, it doesn't matter. And then after you've done that, you separate it. As I separated that piece on the side, and then it's ready to go on your work. And there you go. I just ripped out all around, following the shape of whatever it is you're ripping out of the napkin, and it's ready. Okay, I'm going to put this iris about here, I think. And I don't want it completely straight. I'm going to do that with it. So what I want to do initially is put some gesso underneath so that it's white where I'm going to put it for the majority of the space. Gesso is an amazing product. I love it. So you can see that that will be underneath most of the iris. Now, I'm also going to bring a little bit down here. I'm kind of just following the line right to start with. And if I put this back down, I can see that I need some, and I'm just playing with it here. I need some up here. Now, what I'm going to do also is use my finger. I want it quite solid underneath the flower, so I'm going to put some more here. And a little bit more. But it's also very nice to use gesso. And I'm going to put this into my water so it doesn't harden. It's also very nice, don't worry about getting your fingers in this, to use the gesso with your finger and kind of blend it out a bit. Now, I didn't want it on that line, and it's gone on that line, but that's okay, because it made it too light, and I wanted the line to show. So let's see if I can't get some of it off. Somewhere I have a napkin. Okay, let's see if I can just use my napkin and get some of it off there. Well, a little bit, but there's still some on there. Anyway, soften up your edges. if you want to stay away from there. It doesn't hurt. It's actually quite an effective relief method to bring some of your gesso out into the napkin that's already on your canvas. I know it kind of looks silly right now, but believe me, when it's done, it doesn't. So now rub it in. You can make it as heavy or as light as you want. And this doesn't take very long to dry either. Oh, that's nice. I'm ripping it as we go. It probably wasn't quite dry enough. So you have to watch out for that. Okay, now the other nice thing about gesso is it makes a really good blending tool if you've got some edges that you don't want to see. Actually, on this particular one, I'm kind of happy with the edges. There's nothing that I really want to go over. Maybe a little bit here. It helps to blend in the edges of the different styles of background that you've used. Can bring that down a bit. Might want to put some in here just because looks cool. Keep it off the butterfly and off, for my sake, I want it off of the numbers. I'm also going to use this small piece right here on this side. So I think I'll put it about here, and therefore I need some white underneath it here. The other nice thing about adding some gesso is it adds some texture. When you put the napkin on, it's still pretty flat. If you want it like that, that's fine. You can just leave it. You don't have to do this. Always do put the gesso or white paint even underneath where you're going to put your focal point, because you want it to really show. And I'm just going to add a little bit up here, almost like it's going to look like paste. You can go back in and do it after you've added other things. You may find that there's a spot you would like it to look more raised. Now, when I start looking at my work, I generally am not all that happy with it, and it doesn't until you really get down to the end processes that you really start to love it. When I did the tag, I didn't like it at all, but I am crazy about it now. It just needed all of those finishing touches, and it needed some texture, and it needed words. Okay, now over here, there was an edge. I am noticing it. So I'm just covering that up a bit. And again, adding it to look blend that in a bit in that corner. Okay, it's still a little bit wet. I should have a hair dryer. That's a lesson learned. I'll have one handy next time. And I will tell you that I do tend to kind of get bored with things very, very quickly. So when my next video is available, it probably won't be this type of thing. I think I'm going to do a plant poke for the garden using a poke and Scrabble letters and napkins and twine. So that'll be a fun one to do, and certainly something that at this time of year we can use. Let's see how we're doing. Nope, still wet. Well, there is one thing that I'm going to do, and that is some shading. So I can show you some of that while it dries down in this area. And for that, I'm going to use the brush that I was telling you about, the round brush. I'm going to use Daler Rowney watercolors in a palette, which we do have on the site. Well, it's actually not listed quite yet, but we have them, and they will be listed very shortly. So let me just take some purple, because that's kind of the color that's poking its head out at me is purple, and I'm just going to show you exactly what to do. This is so easy, and it just adds so much detail and makes things pop. And this is watercolor, as I said, so and you don't have to be careful with this. You don't want it to go up over top of something you want to see, but you don't have to be so careful with it that, you know, it takes you a long time to do. The whole point is just to kind of make things stand out from the background. And to do that, all you need to do is a little bit of shading. Now, what I actually started out doing was being a decorative painter, and I would normally have done this with acrylic, but I'm finding that using the watercolor works just as well and a lot faster. And I don't need to use a mop brush. Unfortunately, we had a little recording glitch, and since I was almost finished anyway, I decided to jump ahead to the completed project and just give you a little explanation of what I did. At this point, I put the lilac, this little piece here, and the butterfly, and the piece of, oh, it's gone out of my head. I can't remember what that is called. That is an iris. So I put that piece of iris on, and I did it in exactly the same manner as I did all the background pieces. I hadn't finished shading, so I decided to do that next, and I went back in and I deepened the shading in a lot of spaces. Sometimes you just have to stand back from your work, take a look at it, and think, okay, it needs to be a little bit darker here or there. Sometimes you need to darken it in spaces underneath objects, or kind of in the little areas underneath the petals. I also darkened up the shading on the corners, on both the bottom and the top, and that's a personal preference. You can darken it as much as you like, or you don't have to darken it at all once you've done the original shading. The next thing I did was I used our stenciling cream, and this is the purple one, and I used the stencil Wish, and I stenciled on the word Wish with the cream. That gave it, when I rubbed my finger over it, a little bit of a raised texture, and that was what I was aiming for on this project. I wanted as much texture as I could get. If there is anyone who isn't clear on how to do that, use the stencil with the cream, please let me know, and I'll do a very quick video showing everybody how to do that. But I kind of have the feeling that most people are familiar with that process. The next thing I did was take a look again at the project and decided that maybe a few little gemstones in the butterfly bodies would be a great idea, because they'll catch the light and again add a little bit of texture and dimension to the piece. And the very last thing I did was add a metal butterfly embellishment down here at the bottom, And I did put little rhinestones on the body of this butterfly as well. I used Aleene's Tacky Quick Dry Glue, which I absolutely love. It sticks everything. And I used that to put the butterfly on, and it's holding it beautifully. And that's about it. It looks finished to me, and I don't need to do anything more on it. I'm quite happy with it the way it is. I hope that this video has inspired you to feel a little bit adventurous, to do something new, or to do something you haven't done for a while. For me, it was something fairly new. I really haven't done too much of this, so I very much enjoyed it and intend to do a few more. So I'm going to leave you with have a fun crafting day and my mantra, which is try it, you'll love it. And don't forget to like and subscribe.